Well, if you have any love for railroading, especially if you have a Lionel train or an American Flyer somewhere in your house, you're going to love this show. Yeah, you really will. I'm Ken Kidrowski, and you're on point. And thank you for being out there in TV land on the Armstrong Neighborhood Channel. Ken Kidrowski, of course. This is one of these special shows. And I say that a lot, yes, I know, but this is a special show because originally it was supposed to be an on-location program. You remember On Location, don't you? Well, this is On Point. And the reason why we're on point this morning is because, gee whiz, Mother Nature decided to let snow fall and descend upon Stewardstown, Pennsylvania. And because of that, we didn't go on location. So we're here on point. But we are going to talk about the Stewartstown Railroad because, you know what? It's one of those fantastic gems that's sitting right in the middle of our area here on the Mason-Dixon line. And I think you need to know about it if you don't already know about it. And so that's why we have this gentleman with me here to talk to you all about the Stewartstown Railroad right now. He's Mike Ruan. He's a director of the Stewartstown Railroad. So, Mike, thank you for being here with me today on Point. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Ken. Glad to be here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, just as long as the internet holds out and it doesn't snow anymore and all that good stuff. We will be just fine. Well, Mike, let me give you a little bit of back history about me. I grew up in the Buffalo, New York area, and my dad was a car inspector on the New York Central Railroad. And so I grew up learning about the railroad, loving the railroad, going down to the cripple track where the cars were repaired at Central Terminal in Buffalo, New York. So I got it in my blood through my father. So I'm loving this program this morning, and I'm going to love it when we finally do go on location with you guys later on in the spring or summer or whenever it happens. So that's a little bit about me as far as railroading is concerned. So now let's hear about you. How long have you been with Stewardstown, and what do you do there on the railroad?
Well, I've been with the Stewartstown Railroad for 7 or 8 years now. It's an all-volunteer operation, and when I first went down there, I wanted to become a member, and they said sure, and they handed me a shovel and said, "Can you dig?" So started off with digging, and then moved up to repairing some equipment. And then by the end of the day, I was actually operating some of the trains there. On a day-to-day basis, I keep in touch with the people on the railroad, with the president and the other volunteers on the projects that we're working on. And then when I'm actually at the railroad, we do whatever tasks we have to do that particular day. Sometimes it's shoveling snow because it snowed and we're having people going to be riding on the trains. A lot of times it's working on the track, because our rail line runs 7.4 miles. It runs from Stewartstown, Pennsylvania, out to New Freedom, Pennsylvania. And over those 7.4 miles, we have thousands and thousands of ties that need replacement. So we go out there, we replace the ties, we make sure the track is safe and good for our cars. We do work on our cars and on our locomotives. We do work on our bridges, our track, and our structures. So it's a game of constant updating and fixing and repairing. Meanwhile, having fun when we have passengers and we have the different events that we have on the railroad.
So you have all these volunteers, and they may have a good heart and really want to contribute, but you also have to train these folks, don't you? I mean, there's a lot of technical things that they have to, besides digging and swinging a hammer or something, they have to learn a lot in order to be functioning volunteers for you.
They do, depending upon which jobs they do for us on the railroad, or that they want to do for us on the railroad. They have different training, I guess, that they would go through. First off, everybody gets safety training because a railroad is, a big, dangerous place. There's nothing small on a railroad. The wrenches are nearly as tall as me and weigh as much as my kids. But depending upon the jobs that you're volunteering for, there's all different skill sets. We have mechanics that work on our locomotives and our cars. We have volunteers that operate our toy trains in our headquarters buildings. We have people that work in the station that take the tickets, hand out the tickets. We have conductors that and car attendants that are working on the trains when the people are actually riding the trains. So depending upon what job you're volunteering for, there'll be different training for you. And also there's a lot of overlap. And because we're an all-volunteer organization, people come with a set of skills and capabilities that we try to make the best use of. Some of our volunteers, like I said before, are mechanics, so they work on the locomotives. One of our volunteers actually owns a railroad construction company. So whenever we have to do some larger construction process or job, he's the one we go to. We listen to him and we try to learn, and then we pass it on to the new guys as they come along. And the process that we have with our younger, we call them the junior railroaders, is that someone will start out and it's almost like a training program that you would have in the Boy Scouts, that we show them how trains operate, the safety procedures, how things work on a railroad. And then as they're trained, they sort of move up from conductors to engineer assistants and stuff like that. And we've just had one of our junior engineers turn 18, so now he's a full live engineer now, or railroader. So we have a process where we have, I guess our youngest volunteer we had was 10. This was a young kid that we let run our trains for us in the museum while they were going there. And I think our oldest guy is probably in his 80s. And we have something that everybody can do.
Well, being an old Eagle Scout, I remember railroading merit badge. I remember
Sure.
getting that badge. It's one of the badges I needed from my Eagle Award, and of course, well, here's a question: do you have any local scouts who come down to the railroad there and do anything toward their railroading merit badge?
We do. There's a local Boy Scout and Cub Scout troops, and they've been down to the railroad. They've worked on, I think, cleaning and painting, some general upkeep. Again, where they have a set of skills that aren't particularly tied into railroading, but they were able to help out the railroad. So we've had them down, and sure, we've also looked into doing some sort of thing with community outreach and volunteering, that some schools right now are requiring that you do so many hours of public service or volunteering. And we're trying to work with those organizations as well, because at the bottom, a lot of people still like trains. They're fun, and they like to come out and help.
I find it hard to believe that, people in general just have to love railroading. I mean, there's the history of the railroads. And if you get near a train at a respectful distance, you got to just be impressed with its absolute beauty. I mean, I know they're big, heavy machines and all that, but God, they're beautiful, and they're fun to be around, and they're fun to ride on and all that stuff. And so it has to be a labor of love for you guys who are volunteers to be associated with Stewartstown Railroad and the history of the Stewartstown Railroad. And part of the history of the Stewartstown Railroad is that wonderful station you have down there. Can you tell me a little bit about the station, the history, how old it is, and anything else you want to throw in?
Sure. The station that we have now in Stewartstown is the new station, having been built in 1916. In 1884, when the founders of the railroad decided that they want to get the goods and services that they had in Stewartstown, there was a fruit canning factory, there was a furniture factory, there were things like that. And they wanted to get that to a bigger market, either down in Baltimore or up in New York or further north than that. It's a real hilly area. Anybody who's from around that part of Pennsylvania knows there's a lot of ups and downs on those hills, and it's tough to carry a lot of stuff. So they commissioned the railroad. It was chartered in 1884, and it opened up in 1885. And the station was originally close to where the factories are now. They're mostly storage places now, but where the factories are now. And then at some point, towns further to the east of us, New Park and Fawn Grove, said that, we'd like to get on this railroad thing too. So as the line was extended out to them, the station was built in the location that it is now, because it was sort of like on the main line between the start of the railroad and where it was going to finish up over in New Freedom. So yeah, our station is built in 1914. When they built it, they actually planted a tree in the front yard to sort of commemorate the building of it. And that tree just came down with the weather 2 years ago. So that had lasted over 100 years before it finally fell down. And the building's in good shape. I mean, it's very, very original. We've upgraded the electricity a little bit, changed the heater from a coal heater to an oil heater now. But there's still no water heater. So you go into the restroom there, which is for railroad personnel only. And it's, an old style sink. It's a cold water flat, it has one handle, and the water comes out cold or colder, depending upon the time of year. The station
that's railroading.
That's railroading. Yeah, it's
Railroading.
It's cold. The station has been pretty much unchanged since it was originally built. We've changed the roof. It used to have a slate roof, and it finally gave up after the 100 years. But when you walk in, you see where the station master would stand. There's a waiting room there where the benches are. In the back where the freight room is, there are scales that are, again, over 100 years old. You can see the places on the concrete where they put the ramps to load the boxcars. They wheel the information across. There used to be telegraph in there. It was a railway express agency, which was, the precursor to FedEx or UPS. So there's a lot of history there, and we're happy that we can keep it going.
In this general area, it's no secret. You've got, I don't know if you look upon it as competition, but you've got a Steam in the History down at New Freedom. You've got the folks up at the Strasburg Railroad. You've got Ma and Pa. So this whole area has many, many, many different places where you can go and explore railroading and learn about railroading and see amazing rolling stock and steam engines, and you can learn so much, not just about the history of railroading, but the history of just the United States as it was an outgrowth of railroading. So having had the opportunity and the thrill of visiting your station, I mean, when you walk in that place, you know that this isn't something that Amtrak just built yesterday. This is like the real stuff. Like you said, what'd you say, 1916? You walk in and
Correct.
You just have an appreciation that, this is something that grandpa or great grandpa would have been walking through, and you just got to love it. I mean, if you have any love at all for trains and all that, if you have a Lionel set at home or an American Flyer at home, just got to love walking to that station. So now that we've talked a little bit about the station, what's some of the rolling stock that the people would be interested in seeing down there at the Stewartstown Railroad, Mike? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we have a nice mix of rolling stock. Given that we're a very small railroad, we're only 7.4 miles, and it's basically one track from Stewardstown out to New Freedom. We have a number of locomotives. Our probably most famous locomotive is a little 1943 Plymouth Locomotive, not made by the car company, but a different company named Plymouth, that we call Mighty Mo. It's a little 35-ton machine that can pull our rail cars all the way across the line and back. We have a 1946, I think, GE General Electric diesel locomotive with a big center cab. We have 4 passenger cars. One has been restored. We're restoring the other 3, and they were built in the 1920s by Bethlehem Shipbuilding Company. Bethlehem Steel built these coaches for the Reading Railroad back in the day. We have a caboose that was originally built for the Union Pacific Railroad that somehow made its way to Baltimore and then was donated to us. It's painted blue, and oddly enough, we call it the Blue Caboose. We have we just got a brand new transfer caboose, which is sort of an odd looking caboose. If someone was to look at it, it looks like it's a flat car and it has like a little shack in the middle. So cabooses were used to house the boss of the train, the conductor, and the brakeman and the other guys working on the train. It was basically their rolling house, their rolling home, as they'd be away for so many hours or so many days. A transfer caboose was mostly used in large railroad yards like they would have in Buffalo, New York Central, or in lots of the other yards. And it was basically just a shack on a flat car to keep them warm and dry as they're moving between different jobs in the yard. We have a number of our volunteers own a number of rolling stock that they're kept at the railroad and for the use of the railroad. So we have our motor cars, which were basically small 2, 4, or 6-man trains used to get crews out to either inspect the line or to do repairs. Now, if you remember in the old movies, the old cartoons, the guys with the hand cars, and they'd be pumping there, they'd be pumping up and down. That's how they used to move out and get to the jobs. But by the time you got there, you might be exhausted. You've been pumping this car for 10, 15, 20 minutes an hour, whatever it was, and then you had to use all your tools. So way back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, companies began to make small carts with covers on them and motors, and they would drive out there and they'd do the work. These were called motor cars. And they were built all the way up into the 1980s and the 1990s when somebody figured out that you could put rail wheels on a pickup truck and they'd start going up and down the rails on that. So the motor cars sort of got decommissioned and moved off to the side. And we have a number of those on our railroad. Our motor cars, we can use to travel from Stewardstown all the way out to New Freedom. And we have rides that we call the New Freedom Express. So we'll have 3, 4, 5, 6 of these motor cars, and they'll head all the way out to New Freedom, and we'll stop there and look at their steam locomotive and see what trains they're running, have lunch or maybe, and then we come back to Stewardstown. We also have a Lehigh Valley Caboose. That's one of our members. We have a big burrow crane for lifting heavy things. We have lots of tools that we use for maintaining the track. When you have to take care of your track and the ties and stuff like that, it's called maintenance of way. You have to maintain your right of way. So since we're doing a lot of renovations on this track, we have a lot of machines that do that sort of stuff. So we have things called tie inserters. We have things called scarifiers. We have tampers, which tamp in all of the ballast, the stone around the ties on a railroad. And we also have spikers. So instead of us spiking hand by hand, we have a machine that can drive down the track and put in all the spikes on every tie and sort of keep going. So when the railroad effectively restarted again, it had really laid fallow from the 80s until the early 2000s, or from the early 2000s to the mid 2000s. The track wasn't being maintained. So now that we're running trains again, we have to go out there and replace so many ties to keep it safe enough, and so we can run the big trains and things like that. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, but we have the equipment now that we are able to work with. Now we're just working on manpower and time. So it's lots of steps, hopefully all steps in the right direction, but it's a lot of work. It's a railroad. And so to have the fun, to see the people riding on the Easter trains or the Santa Claus trains or the Halloween or the pumpkin patch trains, we want to make sure that they're safe, that they're having a good time. So we have to make sure that our track's in good shape for that.
Well, Mike, we're going to be talking about all those excursions in just a little bit, but I just wanted to remind people that they're watching the On Point. We are On Point on the Armstrong Neighborhood Channel. And, when I was little, I used to love to sing that song, The Little Red Caboose Behind the Train. And you certainly have a lot of cabooses over there at the Stewartstown Railroad. Let's talk about those excursions. Are there any of those that you can talk about right now that'll be happening, I guess, in springtime and through the summer and, through fall and winter? What can you tell us right now?
Yeah, we have lots of rides that we aim towards tourists. The Stewartstown Railroad, oddly enough, we're still operating under our original charter, so we've never been sold or bought or anything like that. So since 1885, we're allowed to carry freight and passengers. Not a lot of freight being carried right now, especially since the changes in the economy and things like that, and the way that these used to be farms and factories. Now they're mostly homes and condos. But we do have a lot of passenger excursions that we do throughout the year. Routinely, the railroad's pretty quiet from Christmas until about Easter time. And then starting at Easter time, we have the Easter Bunny trains, where people come down, they ride on the train, the Easter Bunny greets everybody and takes pictures. Depending upon snow being on the ground or not, there might be an Easter egg hunt, or the Easter Bunny might be handing out eggs on the train. And we have some of those coming up this spring. I think it's the 27th and 28th of March, the Saturday and Sunday, and then the Friday and Saturday right before Easter, the 2nd and 3rd. Later on in the year, we have a steam locomotive coming. Now, the Stewartstown Railroad doesn't have any steam locomotives. We have diesel electrics, and gasoline. But there's a company who basically says, have steam locomotive, will travel. And they're traveling to Stewartstown. So in the month of June, we'll be running steam trains. So we'll have a steam locomotive pulling one of our 1920 coaches, one of our new open air cars, and maybe a caboose as well. Towards the fall, we have fall foliage rides because our railroad goes where there are no cars, there are no roads. So we travel along the banks of the Deer Creek, and we're in and out of the hills of southern York County, Pennsylvania. So you can see things from our trains that you can't see from a car or from the back window or something like that. You have to really go out and look for these things. After that, we have our pumpkin patch rides, where we drive the train out full of kids usually to an area we call the pumpkin patch, where they get to get off the train, go out, pick up a pumpkin, bring it back, and they get to bring it home. We have our Halloween rides, which are family friendly. These aren't the really scary ones where things jump out at you, but we have scenes and set up along the tracks. We have a hobo encampment. We have spooky things going on, and it changes every year because we have people in town that actually volunteer to be in some of these scenes, and it's always great because they come up with ideas we haven't thought of, and they show up and they want to be part of the experience. After we have the Halloween trains, we almost fall right into our Santa Claus trains, and these are I think the best ones that we've had. I've shown up there as Santa's helper because I can make it happen with a longer, whiter beard, and they're the best times, I think. The kids get on the train, Santa sits with them, we sing Christmas carols. We do a couple nighttime runs where they actually they read the night before Christmas in a visit from St. Nick. And we just have a real good time. It's a lot of fun when you're doing those rides, when you see the 2 or 3 generations or whole groups of families. And we missed that this year with the COVID. You know, the virus really shut us down. That we couldn't have our Santa rides. We just couldn't figure out a way to make it safe. And as we were canceling the rides, the governor of Pennsylvania effectively canceled them for us. So we're looking forward to doing that this year as the virus lessens, as more people get vaccines. So we're really looking for all that coming back.
Well, Mike, I know that during the course of the show here that we'll have either a telephone number or your website mentioned at the bottom of the screen because, you guys were effectively out of business last season, and it'd be nice if you had some more folks coming down there to Stewardstown and just enjoying everything that your organization has to offer. And there's a lot. And for those people who are really gung-ho about trains, I mean, they can go from Monpont up to Strasburg over to Steam into History and Stewardstown. They can keep themselves busy all day or all week long. There's just so much to see, so much to do and experience. And certainly what you guys have there in Stewardstown is just not to be missed. I mean, being a railroading kind of guy, I know that, you're very unique in some very, very special ways, and people should not miss out on what you have in store for them in Stewartstown, Pennsylvania. So, well, just for the good of the order, just in case we miss something, this is your opportunity here. Last chance. Anything else you want to order or mention and tell us about before we have to disappear here on the Armstrong Neighborhood Channel?
We're running trains all the time. Starting from about March till the end of the year, we have trains running a couple times a month at least, sometimes every weekend. You can find out about them either on our Facebook page, because lots and lots of people find us on Facebook, on our webpage, which is stewardstownrailroadco.com, or just Google Stewartstown Railroad. We're the only one. You're gonna find us. And we are looking forward to bringing our passengers back and riding the trains again. Looking forward to having our volunteers come back and just sort of extending our ride and enjoying what we're doing. I mean, this really is a labor of love for all of us. We enjoy our railroad. It's one of the last small town railroads still alive. That's survived through all the different changes in time. You know, before the roads came, before the planes came, everything moved by rail. And we're real happy to be able to be part of that history and show it to people. And we're glad to introduce new kids and families to our railroads all the time.
Well, Mike, I know that what you're saying is absolutely true. When you go to Stewartstown, you will feel the love. You'll feel the love of the people who are working there with their affection for the whole railroad. And if you go to Stewartstown, you will feel your own love for railroading. more than ever before. So Mike Ruan, director of the Stewartstown Railroad, thank you for being with me here on Point. I was thinking of ending the show here with a song like I've Been Working on the Railroad or something like that, but I don't want to drive you away from the TV screen. To me, this was great this morning. I hope you enjoyed it too, learning more about railroading along the Mason-Dixon line here on the Armstrong Neighborhood Channel. Mike Ruan, just such a wonderful source of information about the Stewartstown Railroad, volunteers, rolling stock, all the wonderful excursions that they offer. And, you know, any time during the year almost, except during the hard winter, you're going to have a great time at the Stewartstown Railroad. So pay attention to the information that follows me. Call them, go on the internet, find out more, go down there when they start having all these excursions, and you, your whole family will have a wonderful time learning more about railroading in our area. Great stuff there in Stewartstown, Pennsylvania. And I'm Ken Kidrowski, thanking you for your time, and you've been on Point.